Hey everyone, it's Anime Reaper coming at you with another What If Naruto Found Out About Uzumaki Clan at a Young Age, Part 3. This fanfiction was written by Dreener. If you like this what if and want more like it, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to check the description and leave a comment down below. Without further ado, let's get started. Chapter 5, Feeling of Hope. Naruto was having the best moment of his life. He was talking to his new friends and for the first time in his life. Their parents weren't telling them to stay away from him or telling him to not talk to them. When he met his godfather 6 days ago, Naruto was pleased to know that he wasn't alone, that he had someone to call family and wasn't a demon as everyone called him. When Hokage told him that his parents didn't abandon him but loved him, Naruto felt happier, but now he had friends. Why would you wanted to become Hokage? He heard Shikamaru asking him. Naruto grinned. Because then people of the village will finally acknowledge me, he answered. Shikamaru was thinking about what he meant when he said that he wanted people to acknowledge him. Koji just kept eating chips, while Ino smiled at him. That's a good dream, Ino commented, smiling at Naruto. What about you three? What are your dreams? Naruto asked, turning his head to three of them. Shikamaru shrugged his shoulders. To sleep, and everyone sweet dropped behind their heads. Naruto was thinking, what kind of dream is that? He wondered, but at the same time though it was excellent. Lazy as always, Ino thought with annoyance. While Koji smiled typical Shikamaru, he thought knowing Shikamaru was lazy. Naruto then turned his head to Koji. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it, Koji answered, and Naruto understood, and they still were very young to think about what they would do when they grew up. Naruto then turned to Ino. Well, I want to be a good kunoichi like my daddy, she said happily. Naruto liked the dream and told her that it was a perfect dream. They keep on walking, but the more they walk, the more people start sending Naruto glares, but not daring to do anything since Jiraiya-sama and 3 respectful clan heads were there with 3 innocent children talking with the demon brat. The adults notice immediately, and so does Naruto, whose smile disappears and turns into a frown. Shikamaru on the other hand, could see something is not right with the way they were looking at them. Ino started feeling uncomfortable and walked closer to her dad, and so did Koji. Naruto looked around and felt bad that maybe his presence here was making things worse, and he felt tears in his eyes. Jiraiya had enough and unleashed his ki at the maximum that made many people drop unconscious on the ground, and some were having a hard time breathing. After 2 minutes, no one was looking at Naruto anymore, and they soon reached their destination. Ino asked her father why people started staring at them like that, and he just told her that they were stupid people. Shikamaru didn't seem bothered by their glares. While Naruto was keeping his head down and thinking that it was all his fault and his new friends would soon abandon him like all the other kids of his age, he then felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked up and saw Shikako-sama looking at him with a warm smile. Don't worry about them, Naruto, they're just foolish people, he said, and Naruto managed to smile. Here we are, he heard Hokage said and pointing at a restaurant. Naruto looked at the name, Ichiraku Ramen, and wondered what that was. Come on. All are on me, his godfather stated and put a hand on Naruto's head and rubbed his red hair. Koji looked to like the idea. They were about to walk inside when the adults turned their heads to their left. Naruto turned as well when he saw Hokage walking towards them. Hokage-sama, what a pleasant surprise, Shikako said and took a step forward, and so did Jiraiya. I saw you with my crystal ball walking to this place, so I decided that I needed a break from my war with paperwork, the old man said with a chuckle at the end. Hokage then looked at the little kids. Ino was hiding behind her father. She knew who the Hokage was and was nervous. Koji had stopped eating and for once looked serious, while Shikamaru just looked bored. The older man was about to say something when. Hokage-sama, is good to see you again, Naruto yelled and jumped to hug him. The Kage returned the hug, and Jiraiya smiled at the scene while the kids wondered how Naruto knew the Hokage-sama so well. Naruto usually would call him either Hokage or Jiji. Still, Jiraiya had told him always to show respect in front of others, so Naruto decided to call him with respect. Naruto, my boy, how are you doing? The Hokage asked and looked at Naruto, who looked much brighter and happier than when he saw him in the orphanage. I'm good, Hokage-sama. Hokage is giving me many books to read is amazing, Naruto replied excitedly. Hokage laughed at the nickname while Shikaku chuckled, and so did Inoichi and Choza. At the same time, Ino and Koji were wondering how reading books could be amazing. And Shikamaru silently agreed with Naruto. Oh, Toujiji, the Hokage looked at Jiraiya grinning. Well, that's good Naruto, he said and pulled him to the ground, and they together walked inside the restaurant. Walking inside, Naruto saw a man with a girl older than him behind the desk. Oh Hokage-sama, is good to have you here, the man said respectfully, looking at the Hokage. Is nothing, do you have enough ramen for all of us? Of course, he replied happily, but then his eyes went to Naruto, and he froze. He looked at his face. Red hair and bright blue eyes like the ocean, the man thought with a smile, seeing the child of his two favorite customers. For a moment, Naruto thought that the man would start glaring at him, but he was looking at Naruto with longing, and that confused him. What's your name, little buddy? The man asked with a warm smile. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage, he responded, grinning. Well, take a seat, future Hokage, he said with a smile, and soon everyone took a seat. Hokage seated close to Jiraiya, Inoichi, Shikaku and Choza. At the same time, Naruto was close to Shikamaru, Ino and Koji. Have you been here before? Naruto asked, looking at his new friends. Shikamaru shook his head, and so did Ino. I have been maybe 3 times, Koji replied and couldn't wait to eat. Naruto, you said you liked to read, what do you read? Shikamaru asked interested. I read about chakra, jutsu, ninjutsu, and I have started reading about clans of Konoha and their bloodlines. I will soon start reading about genjutsu and fuinjutsu, Naruto said happily. Shikamaru looked interested, while Ino thought that it was a waste of time. Koji didn't look to either care or not care. Don't you think it's a bit early to worry about ninja stuff? I will wait until I go to the academy, Ino asked. He turned his blue eyes to her. I don't have anything else to do in the orphanage. So I read and I really like to read, Naruto replied. Ino raised her eyebrows in confusion while Shikamaru nodded in agreement with what Naruto said about reading. My godfather even promised me that he would teach me how to unlock my chakra when I read all the books he gave me, Naruto added happily and glanced at Toujiji, who was talking with Hokage-jiji. When Shikaku heard Naruto's response, he turned to Jiraiya. Don't you think it's a bit early to teach Naruto about all that? Shikamaru likes to read, but teaching how to unlock chakra and all that comes after that. I will wait until Shikamaru reaches 5 years old to teach him that, Shikaku asked, thinking that Naruto was way too young to be taught that. He needed to enjoy his childhood and not spend time training. He will have a lot of time to do that once he enters the academy. Jiraiya thought about it for a moment but quickly shook his head. What you said might be true, Shikaku-san, but the way I see how people look at Naruto. He doesn't have anyone there and needs to do something to spend his time. And he will have to worry about the Akatsuki when he grows up, Jiraiya thought the last part. Shikaku understood what he meant and was still slightly angry that Hokage didn't let him adopt Naruto. The Hokage frowned at Jiraiya's answer. He knew Naruto would need to be prepared. Of course, none of the children could hear them except Naruto, who could somehow listen to what his Toujiji said. Not to anyone's else knowledge, the seal in his stomach started glowing red for a few seconds and then stopped. The adults had ordered ramen for themselves and their children. Naruto was waiting for ramen and was talking with Shikamaru and Koji, while Ino was thinking if eating ramen would get her fat. Naruto, how do you know the Hokage? Shikamaru asked. From what he saw, he knew Naruto must know very well to jump like that and hug him in front of so many people. Oh, well, he visits me every month in the orphanage. He even tells me stories sometimes about the first Hokage and second Hokage, Naruto replied like it was no big deal. Shikamaru was confused. Why would Hokage visit him every month? This is so troublesome. He thought and decided to stop thinking about it. Oh wow, that's amazing. I heard from father that Hokage is the strongest in the village, Ino replied excitedly. But in her eyes, the Hokage didn't look like much, or maybe it was because of old age. Yes, Hokage-sama is very strong. I can feel he's stronger than anyone else around here. Perhaps even stronger than Toujiji, Naruto said and glanced at Hokage-jiji. Shikamaru was about to ask what he meant by feeling their power. I hope you like it, the man who worked in the restaurant said and brought them ramen. Naruto looked at the food, and to him, it looked delicious. Koji started eating immediately. Eat while is still hot, Naruto, his godfather said, and Naruto tried a little at first, but then his eyes turned to stars. Wow, he shouted and quickly started eating like there was no tomorrow. Within a minute, the ramen was gone and in front of Naruto was an empty bowl. This is very delicious, Chief-sama, Naruto stated, looking at the chief. The man laughed. No need for that, kid. And my name is Tookie and this one is Ayam. He introduced himself and looked down at his daughter, looking at Naruto with a smile. Hello Ayam-san, my name is Naruto. The girl noticed the way Naruto smiled and his red hair. It reminded her of a woman with the same hair color that had visited their place before. She turned to her father. Tio Yu-chan, he looks like Kushina-san, she whispered, looking up at her father. He nodded at her sadly. Don't mention it now, her father replied quietly. You can eat as much as you want, Naruto-kun, Jiraiya said, and he looked at him in awe. 4 more bowls for Naruto, Jiraiya ordered, and Naruto couldn't wait for the food. After 10 more bowls, Naruto wasn't hungry anymore, and everyone was surprised to see him eat so much. He had eaten even more than Koji, who thought not to lose next time. This was amazing, thank you Togeji, Naruto thanked his godfather. Jiraiya paid for the food for everyone, and now they were staying in front of the Ichiraku ramen. I think it's time for us to leave, Shikaku said, and Shikamaru looked to agree, and so did Inoichi and Choza. Naruto frowned and slightly lowered his head. Shikaku noticed that. Don't worry Naruto-kun, you will get to play with Shikamaru again. Whenever you want, he stated. Naruto's face brightened, and he smiled at Shikaku. Troublesome, Shikamaru murmured. I hope we meet again, Shikamaru. Perhaps next time we can cloud watch together, he suggested, and Shikamaru looked to like the idea. Naruto then turned to Ino. I hope to meet again Ino-san, he said, and she just nodded her head and kept her face away. See you next time Naruto, Koji said and walked away with his father. Shikaku and Inoichi said their goodbyes to the Hokage, Jiraiya, and Naruto. Jiraiya was pleased that Naruto had new friends now. Hokage looked up and saw that it was close to evening. Naruto, we will meet again soon, the Hokage said to the redhead, who couldn't stop smiling. He turned to Hokage Jiji. Of course, and soon I will take that hat Databia, Naruto stated and pointed the finger at the hat. Sarutobi couldn't help but feel proud of Naruto. I have no doubt Naruto-kun. And I'm waiting for that day, he said proudly and hugged him. After that, Hokage returned to his office with Naruto waving his hand at him. Now was only Jiraiya and Naruto standing at the road. Naruto-kun, I want to show you something else, Jiraiya said and offered Naruto to climb on his back. He nodded and climbed on his back. Hold tight, he advised, and they shunsen away. Naruto blinked his eyes, not understanding where he was right now. He looked around and noticed they were very high. Wow. Can you teach me how to do that Togeji? Naruto asked, looking at him with big puppy eyes. Jiraiya growled. Soon, he said, and Naruto jumped in excitement. His Togeji started walking, and Naruto followed him. Here we are, his godfather stated, and Naruto jumped to the ground and followed him. Soon they reached the edge, and Naruto could see the whole village from up here. The sunset made the village and everything look beautiful. Naruto enjoyed the view and was glad that he wasn't alone here. This view is amazing, Naruto said was lying in the grass close to Jiraiya. After minutes of silence, Jiraiya sighed and decided to tell Naruto. I know you're sad about something Togeji. Did I do something wrong? Naruto asked, afraid that it was his fault. He had felt sadness coming from him the whole day. Jiraiya quickly shook his head and put a hand on his shoulder. No Naruto. You have done nothing wrong, Jiraiya said sadly and keeping his head low, not bearing to look at Naruto. Do you remember when I told you that I worked outside the village to make sure the bad guys wouldn't come to attack the village? Jiraiya asked. Naruto remembered that he told him that on the second day when Naruto asked him where he had been all this time, and he told him that he needed to be outside the village for a long time to chase away the bad guys. He nodded. I will need to leave tomorrow Naruto, he said sadly, and Naruto felt tears on his eyes and then rolling down his cheek. Can I come with you? He asked with a tiny voice. No Naruto is too dangerous out there, but I swear I will listen to everything you say. Please, Naruto begged and hugged his Jiji arm, not wanting him to go away and leave him alone. Jiraiya felt his heart was breaking. Naruto was sobbing in his arm and holding it tightly. Naruto, you won't be alone. I will return as soon as I can. Don't forget about your new friends, Jiraiya said quietly and put a hand on his shoulder. There was complete silence again for a few minutes, and Naruto kept crying his eyes out. How long? Naruto suddenly asked when he stopped crying. Jiraiya wanted to say that he would return very soon, but he knew it would take at least 5 months, and if he lied, that would break Naruto's heart. Jiraiya turned to Naruto and hugged him tightly. 5 months, 5 months Naruto, he said quietly. A toad will come to you every month to give you new books for you to read, alright, Jiraiya said, and Naruto nodded his head against his shoulder. Now, once I return I will tell you about your mother, Jiraiya said. Thank you Toadjiji, Naruto said quietly and stayed like that for 30 minutes. I love you Toadjiji. I love you too Naruto-kun. In a forest. Kaa-chan, where are we going? A little girl with red hair was asking her mother as they kept walking through the forest. It has been raining for 2 days now. Since her father died from the shinobis, it had started to rain. The ground was muddy, and her feet were all aching. Soon Asha, very soon we will go home, her mother replied, turned to her daughter, and started walking towards her daughter, who was 4 years old. Asha saw her mother picking her up in her arms. Asha's eyes focused on a weird drawing that was in her mother's right hand. Her mother made a few hand seals with her right hand. Uzumaki style, rainforest, her mother said, and it started raining even more. We will soon find our home, Asha, her mother promised with a smile. Her purple eyes look at her daughter with love. Soon Asha, soon. Chapter 6, Uzumaki on the run. Naruto was crying, he tried to hold his tears, but he couldn't no matter how hard he tried. Naruto was in front of Konoha's gate about to say goodbye to his godfather, who would leave to chase away the bad people. Hokage was standing close to him. Jiraiya had a sad face looking down at his grandson in all but blood. He slowly kneeled to his level and put his hand on his shoulder. Naruto removed his tears with his hand and looked at his godfather. Naruto stops crying, I will be back in no time, Jiraiya said with a grin, trying to ease the pain in both of their hearts. Naruto nodded and swallowed hard not to let more tears fall. Remember what I told you. Read and train, and I will be back in no time. And I will teach you how to unlock your chakra and do cool jutsus. Like your father, Jiraiya said, smiling. Naruto looked at his eyes, surprised. He leaned closer. Next time we see each other, we're gonna talk about your mother, he promised, and his hand fist on his heart. Naruto's frown slowly disappeared, and he smiled at his godfather. Jiraiya trusted Naruto would be able to keep the secret. I will read and train as hard as I can. Toadjiji. And when I become a shinobi I will bring peace so you won't ever have to leave again, Naruto promised with the fist on his heart. Jiraiya felt like he saw Minato and Kushina smiling behind Naruto. Their hands on his shoulders. I have no doubt Naruto, Jiraiya thought and hugged him, and Naruto hugged him back. They slowly pulled away, and Jiraiya got up and looked at his sensei. Take care of him, he said, and the old Hokage nodded his head. Jiraiya waved his hand at Naruto, and so did Naruto. By Toadjiji, Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs as Jiraiya shunted away from the gate. The old Hokage expected Naruto to cry again, but instead, he was smiling. He saw Naruto murmuring something under his breath. Time to read. Old man Hokage, Naruto said and turned to walk away. The old Hokage smiled at the young boy. He did not doubt that Naruto would become a great shinobi in the future. He turned to look at Naruto and saw what Hashirama-sensei and Tobirama-sensei always talked about. The will of fire is strong within you, Naruto. He soon returned to the orphanage, much to his displeasure. He reached his room and didn't bother to look at the word demon written in front of his door. Naruto hadn't asked his godfather why people treated him and hated him. Hokage would always change the subject. Naruto thought to maybe ask his godfather next time he sees him. Not having Toadjiji here made the whole room feel colder. He looked at the frog wallet his godfather gave him today before he left. Naruto glanced down at the shirt the kind Uchiha lady had given him. It was a black shirt with a symbol of fire in the back. He wore a second shirt since he felt cold. He went to the book about Fuinjutsu. He had finished the books about chakra, how it worked and other things. The book for Taijutsu, but that book wasn't that necessary to read since the essential part of Taijutsu was to train outside rather than read about different types. In the book for clans of Konoha and clans outside Konoha, Naruto read about Senju, Uchiha, Nara, Yamanaka, Nara, Akimichi and many other clans. He looked at the title. The Art of Fuinjutsu Level 1. He opened the book on the first page, and his eyes went to the author's name. Yotari Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes widened at the last name. He had always thought he had no clan. His last name Uzumaki was just a random the Hokage had given him. And he was sure that neither the Hokage nor Togeji had mentioned anything about an Uzumaki clan. He then remembered that nothing was mentioned about Uzumaki even in the book talking about the clans of Konoha. Naruto wondered if maybe he was just looking too deeply into this. After all, Togeji promised him to tell him about his mother once he returned. He smiled, remembering that, and started reading about Fuinjutsu. After 6 hours, Naruto had read a quarter of the book. He found all this fascinating. To him looked easy. Naruto wanted to seal something in a scroll, but he had no brush to draw any seal, and he had no scroll. And he had no kunai to seal anywhere. He shrugged his shoulders and decided to ask Hokage the next time he saw him. He kept reading and read that the art of Fuinjutsu was very hard to learn. The number of people mentioned to have been masters at Fuinjutsu in Konoha could be counted with only the fingers of one hand. What is the limit? Naruto wondered if someone could seal other things other than ninja tools like kunai or shurikens. He understood that the book he was reading now. It had only the basics of Fuinjutsu, but it still was the most extensive book compared to the other books. This book had even more pages than the book about clans. Naruto shut the book and took the second book about Fuinjutsu. The Art of Fuinjutsu Level 2 and Level 3. He wondered how many levels there were, but he had only 2 books for now. Naruto hoped the toads would give him more. Next month. He smiled and decided to sleep since he was tired. After 4 days. Naruto was reading the first book for the 3rd time now. He found the seals very interesting, but at the same time, he wondered why he had a seal on his tummy. Naruto understood the weird drawn on his tummy was not a drawn but a seal, but he couldn't understand why he had it. He understood seals are used to seal things, some advanced seals were used to make traps. He wondered what he could have locked inside him. Naruto was sure that it wasn't a shuriken or kunai. Naruto was using a pencil trying to write seals on a blank paper, but it wasn't working. He wondered if he needed a brush to write seals. Or maybe he was doing something wrong. Naruto understood that he needed to unlock his chakra to do something but wanted to try if he could do something before he unlocked his chakra, but he understood he needed to wait until he unlocked his chakra. Naruto put the finger on his chin and decided to remove his shirt. He looked down at his tummy but couldn't see the seal. He wondered if he could understand what was sealed in him. He knew he had to wait until it started glowing red, which was ultimately random as Naruto understood it so far. When Jiji comes I will ask him how to unlock my chakra, Naruto said to himself and decided to go outside. Naruto was looking as children of his age were playing with other children. They laughed and talked to each other. His bright face slowly disappeared. Naruto hoped he could meet with his friends again, but he knew they had their own houses and had no business to visit the orphanage. He looked up at a roof where he could feel 2 Umbu watching him. Naruto smiled at them and was half convinced to wave his hand at them. One of the Umbu had a mask that looked like a dog. He saw Naruto waving at them, and he wondered how the kid could know they were there. Jiraiya-sama had told him that he was an excellent sensor, but to detect an Umbu at age 3. That was no small feat. Will you talk to the kid? The other Umbu asked. She had long purple hair and was wearing a bear mask. She was good at Kenjutsu. The dog knew her name, Yojao Uzuki. The Umbu dog, known as Kakashi Hatake, thought for a moment. I might, he answered after a moment of silence. For a long time, he had wanted to meet the son of his sensei. But he still felt guilty for not being able to protect anyone important to him. His teammates, his sensei that was like a father to him, Kushina-san. Kakashi thought that maybe he was cursed to watch everyone he cared for die in front of him. Kakashi saw Naruto standing on the ground, looking at the other kids playing. They kept standing looking after Naruto for the rest of the day until he returned inside. Secret place. Danzo was waiting for the reports of his team. He had sent a large group of his Umbu to find a family of Uzumaki survivors. He didn't know if they were or not, but it was worth experimenting if they were. They were known for their long life. And Danzo believed their cells could be beneficial. Especially the girl could become a good shinobi in his hands. The father and mother weren't necessary, and he could just kill them or use their bodies for experiments. As he was waiting, he was thinking about how to put the Kyuubi brat on his hands. He knew Jiraiya would be a bad influence on him, and only Danzo knew how to use a shinobi properly. The old toad is gone for now. The stupid villagers could be helpful for once, Danzo thought with a slight smirk on his face. I could use their hatred towards him, Danzo thought. Yes, he will be mine like his mother should have been. A weapon for the village. You stopped me once, Hiruzen, but not twice. There are many ways to break a child's will. Suddenly one of his Umbu kneeled in front of him. Danzo summer report from the Uzumaki mission, the Umbu said respectfully, his face hidden behind his mask. His eyes were emotionless. Report. We were able to find the family, but the mother and daughter were able to escape. We tried to capture the father, but in his last breath, he activated a seal that destroyed his body. We lost 6 men, sir. We left 20 Umbu looking for the child, but it started raining and we couldn't follow them, he reported. Danzo was disappointed at his men, but he wondered what he meant. What do you mean? Why rain didn't let you follow them? Danzo asked, quite interested. I don't know, Danzo-sama, our sensors couldn't detect them anymore. And 3 Umbu fell dead in the ground after a minute of walking around the rain, he replied. Now Danzo was quite shocked. Interesting jutsu. Someone must be pretty capable of using water jutsus to be able to make rain. I want my new weapons found. I want both the girl and the woman alive. Ashura Uzumaki, 3 days later. We have been in the run for a week now. The ground was all muddy, her legs were itching everywhere. Her clothes were full of mud around. Her mother would once a day wash her clothes with her water jutsus. Asha couldn't understand why this was happening, why the weird shinobis attacked them. They were peaceful people and did nothing except fishing. Her mother was getting more tired each day, she would leave her with a clone at least 3 times a day and return when she found something to eat. Kaa-chan, when will Tio-yu-chan return? Asha asked, not understanding where her father was. Her mother's eyes were saddened for a moment, and Asha was sure she would cry. She was about to apologize. He will return soon, Asha. He just has something to do with the ninjas that came to our house, she replied and fought back her tears. Asha knew her mother wasn't telling her the truth but decided not to ask more questions. They were using a tree to cover themselves from the rain. Looking at the rain now, Asha wondered why it hadn't stopped raining since they left their home. Why is raining so much? It helps Asha-chan, this way the bad people won't find us, her mother replied, tired and breathing heavily. Kaa-chan, where are we going? She asked with a tiny voice. She felt her mother's hand on her long red hair. To a new home, my sweetheart, she replied kindly and removing the dirt from her hair. Asha didn't want to leave her old home. She was happy there with her Kaa-chan and Tio-yu-chan. She always thought that her home was the most beautiful home to exist. She remembered the sea close to their home and would sometimes just stare at the sea near their house. It was beautiful. She always liked it and occasionally would dream as the sea was talking to her. Outside her home was a treehouse that she sometimes would hide when she played with her parents. Asha didn't want any other home. The tiny house close to the ocean and with a treehouse was the best home. She felt hot tears in her eyes when she thought about her house. Almost like her mother could feel her sadness. What's wrong, sweetheart? She asked, and making her daughter turn her face to her. I want to return to our home, she replied, tears rolling down her cheek. Her mother's smile slowly disappeared. I know that, but we will soon have a new home. You will love it, she replied in a tired voice. Asha noticed her mother looked very tired now, and she saw that it had stopped raining now. She was breathing heavily, her legs could hardly bring her to this point, but she knew they needed to leave soon. We need to leave, she said in a serious tone. She slowly tried to stand on her feet and used the tree close to her to stand. Kaa-chan, you're tired. We should rest, her tiny Ruby said. She smiled but knew they didn't have time to rest. She put a smile on her face for her daughter, she couldn't let her get scared. Don't worry, I'm well rested now, she replied and grabbed her hand. And they left towards their new home. That all for What If Naruto Found Out About Uzumaki Clan at an Early Age, Part 2. If you like this story, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to my channel, and also show your support to the author by hitting the link down in the description. Thanks for listening, and until next time.